The landmarked Octagon House was built in the 1860s and is reputedly the last domed octagonal residence.
From the unusual Octagon House to the cozy American Craftsman and the practical American Foursquare, today we're about to explore 30 gorgeous old house styles you won't believe existed. Number 1. Octagon House. The Octagon House is a daring design from the 1850s by Orson Squire Fowler, a phrenologist turned home design visionary. He swore the octagon was the smartest shape for more space, brighter rooms, and breezier interiors than your typical rectangle. Fowler's own creation featured a spiral staircase, wraparound verandas, and a sleek, practical design that was ahead of its time. Thanks to his 1848 book, The Octagon House, A Home for All, thousands of octagonal homes sprouted across the U.S. and Canada. They were energy efficient, cost smart, and, let's be honest, kind of futuristic for the 19th century. While this style never became mainstream, surviving octagon houses are unique gems that still wow anyone who visits. Number 2. Greek Revival. Between 1825 and 1860, America went through a serious obsession phase with ancient Greece. This gave rise to the Greek Revival style, instantly recognizable for its towering Doric or Ionic columns, wide pediments, and symmetrical facades that made houses look like miniature temples. These homes symbolized strength, order, and permanence during a time when the U.S. was still figuring out its identity. But why would a young republic halfway across the world copy Greek temples? Because to Americans, Greece meant democracy, culture, and ideals worth showing off in wood and stone. With bold moldings, large windows, and dramatic cornices, Greek Revival houses dominated cities and countryside alike. And while we don't see many being built today, the ones that survive remain powerful monuments to America's early ambitions. Number 3. Georgian.
The most spectacular plant in my front garden are my iceberg roses. They are
When you walked past a Georgian home in the 18th century, you not only saw a house, you saw power, wealth, and order on display. Dominating the American colonies during the reigns of George I through IV, this style was all about perfect symmetry, with windows balanced like soldiers on parade, paneled doors crowned with ornate details, and facades of brick or stone that shouted sophistication. Inside that, every element was designed to impress: polished wood, grand staircases, and proportions so precise they felt almost mathematical. They were the homes of colonial elites who wanted to project stability and dominance. Centuries later, Georgian architecture still stands as a reminder of when a house was proof of who you were. Number 4. Queen Anne Victorian. The Queen Anne Victorian exploded onto the scene in the late 19th century. And no, it's not really about Queen Anne. It's about fancy, eclectic, fairy tale designs that broke all the rules. These houses stand out with steep roofs, decorative gables, and turret towers that make you do a double take. Patterned shingles, intricate woodwork, and vibrant colors add to their undeniable charm. Now, here's the interesting part. Once you entered, high ceilings, stained glass, and intricately carved fireplaces showed off wealth, craftsmanship, and a flair for the dramatic. Lavish porches invited guests to linger, making every visit feel like a small event. Although modern tastes moved toward simplicity, Queen Anne Victorians remain treasured landmarks, celebrating the artistry and grandeur of an era when houses were statements. Number 5. Shotgun House. At first glance, the shotgun house looks just like a long, narrow box of a home, but its quirky name has an unforgettable origin. People used to say you could fire a shotgun through the front door and the blast would sail straight out the back without hitting a single wall. That's because these homes were typically just one room wide and several rooms deep, with everything lined up in a perfect row. They were built for working-class families in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The style was cheap, efficient, and fit perfectly on narrow urban lots. Influenced by African and Caribbean traditions, shotgun houses usually had gable roofs and welcoming front porches where neighbors gathered to chat. Small? Yes, but these modest homes shaped Southern culture and community life, proving that impact isn't always about size.
This registered historic shotgun house in the city of Mobile. It is a Greek Revival shotgun house built in...
Number 6. American Craftsman. What if your house wasn't just a place to live, but a showcase of handcrafted genius? That's the idea behind the American Craftsman, born in the early 1900s as a rebellion against boring, mass-produced homes. Think low-pitched roofs, wide eaves with exposed rafters, and porches held up by thick, solid columns that practically scream, "Built to last." Architects like Green and Green in California led the way, and between 1905 and 1930, Craftsman homes became the go-to for Americans craving honesty, simplicity, and charm. Their skillful craftsmanship and harmony with nature turn these houses into timeless icons that sometimes slowing down and doing things by hand is way cooler than mass production. Number 7. Italianate. By the mid-19th century, Americans wanted something a little more romantic than stiff classical boxes. Italianate were inspired by dreamy country villas in Italy and spreading like wildfire between 1840 and 1885. With its low-pitched roofs, wide overhanging eaves, and decorative brackets that look like fancy crown moldings for the outdoors, the Italianate brought a fresh European vibe to U.S. neighborhoods. They were tall, narrow windows with arches or elaborate hoods added that extra touch of elegance. Still, why did this style charm so many people? The Italianate made houses look both refined and approachable, a mix of beauty and comfort that American families couldn't resist. And today, they still grace historic districts, standing as always needing marble columns. Number 8. Mediterranean Revival. When the U.S. fell in love with sunshine and leisure in the early 20th century, it needed an architecture to match, and that's how Mediterranean Revival became the coastal favorite. With stucco walls, red tile roofs, arched doorways, and wrought iron details, these homes looked like they'd been plucked straight from Spain or Italy and dropped into California and Florida. Courtyards, balconies, and lush gardens blurred the line between indoors and outdoors, creating homes that felt like permanent vacations. So, was it just about looks or something deeper? In truth, Mediterranean Revival reflected America's growing fascination with exoticism and the good life, a way of living that promised romance, luxury, and comfort all in one package. Number 9. Cape Cod.
Thousands of American towns have Cape Cod-style homes, and we decided...
Okay, what kind of home was tough enough to handle brutal New England winters, yet still charming enough to spark a nationwide revival centuries later? The answer is Cape Cod. First built in the 1600s by settlers, these houses were designed for survival, with steep pitched roofs to shed snow, central chimneys for heat, and simple, rectangular layouts that kept things practical. Fast forward to the 1930s, and Cape Cod staged a comeback as the perfect suburban home with modest-sized, cozy dormer windows and weathered shingled exteriors that scream classic charm. And they still capture hearts today because Cape Cods embody simplicity, a design that you don't need extravagance to feel at home. These little houses are living history wrapped in cedar shingles and New England grit. Number 10. Salt Box. Nope, it's not the salt box you sprinkle on your fries or that extra pinch you throw on popcorn. This salt box is way bigger, colder, and a whole lot older. This quirky New England design dating back to the 1600s is instantly recognizable by its long, sloping rear roof that makes the house look like it's leaning back. But that odd shape was survival. The steep roof let heavy snow slide right off, while the timber frame and central chimney kept families warm through brutal winters. Settlers weren't going for beauty contests here. They were building sturdy, practical homes that could take a beating. These days, salt box houses aren't exactly being built fresh, but the historic ones remain beloved icons, showing even a funny-looking roof can become timeless. Number 11. Tudor. Step onto a quiet street and spot a house that looks like it's been lifted from the pages of an old storybook. It's a Tudor-style home. Inspired by medieval English architecture, these houses became popular in America during the early 20th century. With steeply pitched gable roofs, tall, narrow windows, massive chimneys, and their signature half-timbered exteriors, Tudors carry a kind of fairy tale charm that feels timeless. Between the 1920s and 1940s, they transformed suburban neighborhoods into little slices of old-world Europe. They were a way of living inside nostalgia, offering the elegance of the past while still adapting to modern comfort. Number 12. American Foursquare. The American Foursquare became a favorite for middle-class families in the early 1900s who wanted spacious, practical homes without breaking the bank. Its boxy 2.5-story shape with a hipped roof and central dormer maximized interior space while keeping construction simple and affordable. The wide front porches supported by sturdy columns made relaxing outside or chatting with neighbors a daily pleasure. While the exterior looks simple in the first place, the Foursquare often incorporates design elements from Prairie and Craftsman homes, adding subtle charm and elegance. And you won't believe it, but it was born as a rebellion against the excessive Victorian style, stating that clean lines and practicality can be just as beautiful as ornate details. Though it faded from mainstream building mid-century, many historic Foursquares still stand today, celebrated for their timeless balance and comfort and style. Number 13. Gothic Revival.
The most glorious part of St Mary's interior is the eastern end, which has gorgeous vaulted
Gothic Revival style, which swept across America in the mid-19th century, bringing dramatic medieval-inspired designs into everyday homes. And in the 19th century, families wanted their houses to look like cathedrals and castles, born out of a romantic movement where people long for design that stirred emotion, imagination, and even spirituality. Architects like Alexander Jackson Davis led the charge, transforming ordinary streets into storybook settings. Nowadays, Gothic Revival homes are rarely built, yet they're admired for their haunting beauty they bring to American architecture. Number 14. Second Empire. If there's one house style that shouts, "I've made it," louder than the rest, it's the Second Empire. Rising to fame in America between the 1860s and 1880s, this style borrowed its flair straight from Napoleon III's Paris. And can you guess the most recognizable feature? The iconic mansard roof, a clever design that made the home look stately from the outside while secretly adding a whole extra floor of living space on top. But why did Americans fresh out of the Civil War suddenly crave these grand European-inspired mansions? Actually, status. With ornate dormer windows, heavy cornices, and decorative brackets, Second Empire houses became the architectural equivalent of wearing a crown. Even though the style has faded now, surviving Second Empire homes still stand tall, timeless symbols of 19th century sophistication and showmanship. Number 15. Victorian Gothic. During the 19th century, Victorian Gothic homes made their mark with steeply pitched roofs, striking pointed arches, and lace-like wooden trim called barge boards. These houses were basically the fantasy novels of the era, but built in wood and stone. With time, the Industrial Revolution was loud, dirty, and gray, Victorian Gothic homes with their vibrant colors, stained glass, and whimsical details promised a slice of charm and imagination in a world that was rapidly changing. The architects like A.J. Downing turned these into works of art, filling neighborhoods with vertical drama and textured beauty. Modern builders rarely attempt them today. Surviving Victorian Gothic houses are like storybook treasures, keeping 19th century imagination alive, one pointed arch at a time. Number 16, Richardsonian Romanesque.
Toronto's Richardsonian Romanesque buildings, such as the Ontario Legislature.
Even saying Richardsonian Romanesque feels like a workout for your tongue, but behind that mouthful is one of the boldest architectural styles America has ever seen. The shocking part is, this whole style was built in the 19th century under the name of architect Henry Hobson Richardson, dedicated to power and permanence. The massive blocks of rough-cut stone, stacked into fortress-like homes with heavy rounded arches looming over doors and windows. These were houses that practically said, "We'll be standing here for the next 1,000 years. Deal with it." Most common in public buildings, a few wealthy families brought this dramatic style into their residences, because who wouldn't want to live in their own private castle? While it faded in the early 20th century, Richardson's influence shaped American architecture for decades, leaving behind awe-inspiring landmarks that still feel timeless, immovable, and unapologetically grand. Number 17, Stick Style. I know what you're thinking, but this isn't about building a house out of popsicle sticks, though it kind of looks like someone got carried away with the idea. Stick-style architecture, popular in the late 1800s, was all about showing off the bones of a house as decoration. The style is instantly recognizable for its decorative wooden stickwork laid across exterior walls, almost like the frame of the building is wearing an outfit. It's kind of the missing link between Gothic Revival's dramatic flair and Queen Anne's ornate charm. It made the structure itself part of the design, a pretty bold move for the Victorian era. While it never stole the spotlight for long, surviving stick-style homes still stand out today for their unusual blend of simplicity and detail. Number 18, Shingle Style.
Well, we call this house our contemporary shingle style. It's on the water, out on a point that pokes in.
The name makes it sound like you're about to learn the hottest new dance move, the shingle. But nope, this was one of America's most original architectural styles of the late 1800s. Shingle-style homes stood apart from their flashy Victorian cousins. Instead of piling on frills and trim, they used continuous wooden shingles to wrap around irregular shapes, turrets, and sprawling roof lines, like the house was wearing a cozy cedar blanket. These homes often boasted wide porches, towers, and open floor plans that blurred the line between indoors and out, making them especially popular in breezy coastal communities. The vibe was casual elegance of simple, natural, but still bold. As the style faded by the early 20th century, the surviving shingle homes remain architectural gems, admired for their rustic charm and ability to blend beautifully with the landscape. Number 19, Cottage Style. Cottage style, who doesn't want that? Honestly, it's every aesthetics girl's dream. A cozy little home tucked away in nature, maybe with a lake nearby, wildflowers at the window, and the kind of piece you only see on Pinterest boards. Rooted in modest rural homes, cottages were built to blend seamlessly with the landscape while keeping life simple and cozy. The dormer windows, the front porches that practically beg you to sit down with a cup of tea and a blanket. Taking notes from English countryside charm and the arts and crafts movement, they embrace natural materials like stone, wood, and brick to create that timeless storybook feel. More than just houses, cottages promise comfort, retreat, and an escape from the chaos of modern life. That's why, even in our generation, they remain a beloved dream home style, equal parts practical and magical. Number 20, French Provisional. French provisional architecture is basically what happens when rustic charm meets elegance straight out of rural France. Just picture 17th and 18th century countryside manners, stately yet inviting, and you've got the blueprint. These homes are easy to spot with their second-story windows, usually with charming shutters and perfectly balanced symmetry. Exteriors often feature stone, brick, or stucco, dressed up with wrought iron balconies, or details that whisper old-world sophistication. When the style crossed the Atlantic, it took America by storm in the early to mid-20th century. Why? Because it hit that sweet spot, a home that feels polished enough for the suburbs, but still cozy enough to imagine yourself sipping wine in a French vineyard. French provisional is formal, yet warm, refined, yet comfortable. Number 21, traditional farmhouse. The traditional farmhouse is the definition of simple, sturdy, and comforting, which came out of the needs of early American farmers in the 18th and 19th centuries. These homes were designed to work. With their wide porches for muddy boots and summer evening, and boxy layouts that wasted no space, farmhouses were practical down to the last nail. Made with local wood and stone, they stood side by side with barns at the very center of rural life. It's the giant hearth at the heart of the house, or the way those big porches practically beg for rocking chairs and sweet tea. Whatever the reason, the farmhouse proved that practicality and coziness can be the perfect match. Number 22, colonial, American, Dutch, Spanish, French.
Everything you need to know about colonial-style homes.
Colonial houses are basically the great-grandparents of American architecture, brought over by European settlers from the 1600s through the early 1800s. But depending on where you lived, colonial could look completely different. Yes, you got me right. American colonials leaned into symmetry, central chimneys, perfectly balanced windows, and sturdy gable roofs. Dutch colonials rocked their iconic gambrel roofs, that barn-like curve that you can spot a mile away. Spanish colonials added flair with stucco walls, red tiles, and arched doorways, while French colonials went bold with wide porches and raised basements to survive swampy climates. Yet, how did one label colonial end up meaning so many different things? It's all about adaptation. The settlers blended old world traditions with whatever the new world threw at them: climate, materials, and necessity. They stand as lasting examples of colonial design, each with story and timeless charm. Number 23, prairie style. In the early 1900s, America was done copying Europe's castles and columns. So, Frank Lloyd Wright and his crew asked a bold question: what if our homes looked like the land itself? And they made prairie-style homes. It was all about low, flat roofs, wide eaves that stretched like the horizon, and long horizontal lines that mirror the endless Midwest. The walls practically dissolved into open floor plans, with built-in furniture and rows of ribbon windows flooding everything with light. The use of natural wood and stone was philosophy. These homes were designed to belong to their landscapes, not dominate them. Prairie style literally helped to launch modern American architecture, and while the style faded by the 1920s, its DNA lives on in countless suburban homes today. So, was this the first true American style? Many architects would say yes. Number 24, neoclassical style.
17,000 square foot private mansion sitting on 2 acres, offering 3 levels of unique.
You've seen them, those grand houses with giant white columns. Back in the mid-18th century, neoclassical architecture was rising and was more than pretty columns. It was a statement of symmetry, triangular pediment, and Ionic or Corinthian capitals that symbolized order, democracy, and stability. In a young America eager to prove itself, nothing screamed, "We're serious," like a house that looked ready to host philosophers in togas. From elite estates to government building, neoclassical became the style of power, permanence and polish. Even now, its influence is everywhere, in banks, museums, universities, all borrowing that same timeless look. So next time you pass a columned facade, ask yourself, is it just a house or a little piece of ancient Rome reborn in America? Number 25. Federal Style. The Federal Style was a bold brick Georgian house that made it look slimmer, lighter, and just a little more sophisticated between 1780 and 1830. As America's architectural glow-up in the years after independence, the look was smooth with delicate details and elegant touches like fan-shaped windows above the front door. Ornamentation was subtle of swags, garland, and refined classical motifs because the goal wasn't to overwhelm but to impress with quiet sophistication. In a young republic eager to show cultural maturity, federal architecture whispered confidence. It claimed America could create beauty that rivaled Europe without shouting. Number 6. Plantation houses. The plantation houses rising across the American South in the 18th and 19th centuries were both architectural marvels and symbols of wealth and power. Influenced by Greek revival and Georgian styles, they showcase grandeur to catch southern breezes. But these estates were built on an economy fueled by slavery, making them deeply tied to one of America's darkest chapters. That's what makes plantation houses so complex, since they're both breathtaking landmarks and reminders of painful history. These days, many stand preserved, not just as grand homes, but as spaces to reflect on the South's cultural, architectural, and human legacy. Number 27. Spanish Colonial Revival.
Tranquil, warm, and classic, this 1934 Spanish Colonial Revival was built by the highly regarded...
If you've ever strolled through California or the Southwest and thought, why do these homes feel like a vacation villa straight out of Spain? Maybe you were looking at Spanish Colonial Revival architecture. This style took off in the early 20th century, pulling inspiration from the original Spanish colonial buildings of the 1600s and 1700s, with white stucco walls, red clay tile roofs, arched entryways, and wrought iron details. The style was about beauty and about reviving a cultural past. Spanish Colonial Revival celebrated Hispanic heritage while also romanticizing the region's mission history, as these homes were loved for their earthy elegance, inviting warmth and timeless connection to place. Number 28. Bauhaus. Minimal, sharp, and unapologetically modern, Bauhaus architecture was trying to rewrite the rule book. Emerged in Germany in the early 20th century, it came out of the famous Bauhaus school, where architects believed homes should be designed the same way great tools are, functional, efficient, and built to last. Forget decorative trim and flourishes. Bauhaus stripped design down to clean lines, flat roofs, glass walls, and open floor plans. However, for its time, it looked almost alien compared to ornate Victorian or Gothic revival homes. Yet, it was the boxy revolution that gave us the blueprint for modern living. Steel, glass, and concrete became the language of design. Number 29. Art Deco. To be honest, Art Deco had an attitude of flashy, geometric, and dripping with glam.
Art Deco was a design movement popular in the 1920s and 30s, recognizable for its sleek, stylized forms. And
bursting onto the scene in the 1920s and 30s, this design trend mirrored the Jazz Age, the bold, optimistic, and obsessed with the future, just as its name. The sharp zigzags, dramatic sunbursts, polished chrome, and sweeping stepped forms that made homes look like something out of a sci-fi poster. Art Deco pulled from industrial progress, machine aesthetics, and even exotic motifs from ancient Egypt and beyond, making your home look like it belonged in the spotlight. Number 30. Mid-century modern.
The Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, it's predominantly a rural area, about an hour out of Melbourne.
And finally, the last stop on our architectural journey, mid-century modern. It came about in the post-World War II of the 1940s to 1960s. This style became reimagining how people lived. This was an era buzzing with innovation, optimism, and new materials like steel, concrete, and plywood. Architects like Charles and Ray Ames or Ludwig Mies van der Rohe were trying to reshape lifestyles, prioritizing light, space, and harmony with nature. Really, mid-century modern created a blueprint for modern living that still reshapes design today. So, which of these stunning old homes would you actually live in if you could? And did any design totally blow your mind? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. And hey, don't just admire. Hit like, subscribe, and share, or these gems might get lonely.